Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Olivia. You may also know me as the Carnivore Ballerina, and today I want to talk about my flexibility, because a lot of people ask me all the time, were you born like this? You were naturally flexible? You are whatever. I do agree that yes, you can be born with more of an ability to be flexible, but at the same time, it's something that you work on, and your environment, and as I've come to realize, health and all those different things play a huge role in this. I'll get into that in a moment. I just want to quickly mention, before I continue talking about my flexibility and all that fun stuff and how you can improve your flexibility, today's video is sponsored by myself. Very cool. I have created these ballet leotard patterns, so if you see me wearing the halter leotards, those are made by me. My profile picture, I'm wearing a leotard that I made. It can also double as a swimsuit, so it's not just a leotard pattern. It can be for ballet, it can be a bodysuit, it can be a gymnastics leotard, it's a swimsuit. If you cut it in half and you cut it here, if you want it to be higher up, it's a bikini. It's a lot of things, so you can find that down in the description box. I believe I have about 5 styles out now, and if you are a bit more knowledge on sewing, you can kind of customize them, how you sew on the straps and things like that. So if you are interested in doing that, it's a lot less expensive than buying another leotard, and it's very rewarding, and you can make it to your length also if you want a higher leg line, if you need it longer, if you're taller, all that fun stuff. So go check it out, and without any further ado, here is my flexibility thingy and how you can improve your flexibility. So I mentioned in my original ballet story, starting ballet late, I did a bunch of other types of sports when I was younger. I am caffeinated up here. I did a lot of other sports when I was younger. So I did gymnastics. I did do ballet, of course. I did other types of dance, all recreational. The gymnastics was more so like the professional thing that we were, as in my sister and I, were doing. And we did stretch in gymnastics, but I could never do a middle split. I was always like this much off the floor, even as a tiny child. But I could always do the lateral split, so I could do facing front and then the other side. It always felt very uncomfortable, and it was never like loose type of stretching, which is what I feel now. Like now I feel I can sit in it for a while. I would never sit in it for hours on end. But then it was just painful. It was pure torture. And I remember we would get stretched. The teacher would sit on our back in the hopes that we would get to the floor more and reach the floor, especially in the middle split. Like I mentioned, could barely reach it. Okay, I could, but not really. Fast forward, that was about when I was, let's say, 5 till 8-ish years old, maybe a bit before then. Once again, my sister and I, we didn't really do any other form of stretching until I was around, I think, 10 or 11. Actually 11 now that I come to think of it. And this was when we were doing capoeira, which is a type of martial art and kind of gymnastic-y thing. We would get stretched by our teacher, and once again, wasn't fun. We only spent like not even 5 minutes stretching, actually, come to think of it. I could always touch the floor with my hands, even if it was like just a little bit. So I did have flexible hamstrings. I will say that. I will admit that. But when we did that, I don't think I could do the splits. I had lost the ability to do the splits. And it wasn't until the age of around 13 and a half-ish, when my sister and I began going to a dance studio again, that I spent a bit more time stretching. And it was still like only 5 minutes at the beginning of class because the teacher told us to. And I don't think I could do the splits. I remember splaying myself like open, but with my legs kind of facing laterally, so it was like a fake split. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it was a fake split. So if your hips aren't aligned with your legs when you're splitting this way, it's not a real lateral split. That's my opinion. So I would do that, and I thought, I'm flexible. I was not. My hips were also very tight. It took a very long time to loosen them, especially for turnout. When I did eventually get into the National Ballet School of Uruguay and went there, I still didn't stretch. I'd get there about an hour early just because it was like a 3-hour drive to get there, that the timings didn't quite time up properly, so I would always be there really early. And I would just sit there. I would kind of stretch, but not really. At this point, I think I could definitely do the splits, but I had no idea I had to stretch my back, stretch my hips, stretch on the bar, stretch my hamstrings, stretch my arms, stretch my hands. I mean, there's so many ridiculous. You have to stretch basically every single part of your body. I stretch my neck now. I stretch everything. My hands. I massage my hands so that they're looser. Ballet really is detailed, to say the least. So yeah, I didn't really get that flexible. And then in my second year of going to that ballet school, I had this new classmate, and she came in a bit late into our class. I forget why. I think they realized that she was put in too low of a level, so then they pushed her up. They bumped her up to our level. And she was very flexible. She had the most perfect conditions for ballet. She had the most beautiful feet extensions. She had amazing extensions and so much potential there. Sadly, got very discouraged, which is such a huge disappointment because she had a very prosperous future. Anyways, yeah, so thanks to her, I realized you can stretch your back. That's the thing. My other best friend, who I interviewed on my channel some couple weeks ago, possibly a couple videos back, she had the most amazing flexible back. I think she's the person with the most flexible back that I have ever met. We would do these exercises and her back would just... I think my flexibility now still is not as flexible as her then. She was like, I don't know, a bendy something. So yeah, so I had them both, but they were used to stretching. My best friend that I interviewed, Luciana, she did competitive dancing here in the US, so she knew what that training was like. And then my other friend, who I mentioned before, she also did gymnastics, rhythmic gymnastics, I believe, and ballet, so she also knew how to stretch and warm up and do all those things, whereas I was clueless. So they both knew that type of stretching, and then they would do it, and then I would see them, and then that got me a bit into more so stretching, but it wasn't until I was around 18, I think, that I began to actually stretch. I remember, and this is so ridiculous, I watched an interview of Tia Wenkman. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. She won YGP, I believe, a while back, and she has a huge social media following, and she has amazing flexibility, and she trains a lot since she was very young, of course. And in this interview, she said, yeah, at home I stretch for about an hour a day, and I watched that, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. I thought, that is like beyond ridiculous, that's excessive, that's stupid. And then fast forward a couple years, I began stretching for more than 2 hours a day. I'll get into that in a moment. But yeah, so I saw that, and initially my idea or thought process was, that's beyond stupid and ridiculous. I'm never going to do that. Fast forward to when I'm 18, I didn't like the way I looked. I had a lot of health issues, which made me just look bigger. So then my technique just looked very turned in. And I thought, okay, to achieve turnout, I need to be more flexible because I wanted flat turnout. It was getting there, but it wasn't quite there yet. So looking back, I think the best way to achieve full-on turnout, if you want it fast, if you're not going to go the traditional route of you start with an 8-count plie in first position or second position, and you do that for a year and you progress from there on. I think the fastest way to get technique is you first become flexible. That way your hips are open, they have that mobility and range of motion, and then from that flexibility you strengthen. Then you strengthen with exercises which will keep you mobile, so you're not tightening any of that flexibility. So become flexible, strengthen that flexibility, and then you can have adequate turnout. I'm not guaranteeing this is 100% going to lead you to flat turnout, but looking back and having done more so that approach, it has been the most, I guess, visible change. Yeah, is that the word? I don't know. But yeah, so when I was 18, I was training alone, and I didn't really know, because when I was in a ballet school, we all talked about things like, what is our specialty? What is Olivia known for? What is Luciana known for? What is whatever known for? And there were a lot of friends that we knew, she's the turner, she has good extensions, she has whatever, and that's like a typical thing in the ballet world and dance world in general, and probably in most athletic worlds, is everyone has like their strong point. And at the time I thought, well, I don't have a great body, so it's definitely not that. I don't have great extension, so it's not that. I don't have flexibility, so it's not that. My technique is not great, so it's not that. I don't have great turns, I don't have great jumps, so what do I have? And I thought, well, I have the will to dance. And I thought, okay, no one cares about that. Realistically, no one cares. There has to be something interesting if I'm going to an audition. That's what I'm saying by realistically. That's going to captivate someone. Sometimes it's you are an amazing jumper, you are an amazing turner, because eventually it boils down to, what could you be known for later on if you were put on a stage in a soloist role or something? What would make you special and stand out? For Natalia Osipova, it's very obvious. She's an amazing jumper. So I wanted something like that would be impressive about myself. And I thought, okay, I'm going to stretch now. How can I stretch? It was very painful at the beginning, just because I had this severe inflammation and joint pain, but I did it anyway. And I just started by stretching on whatever I could find that I thought could help me stretch. And that's come down to my favorite thing, which is a doorway. I love using a doorway as my stretching tool. So that's kind of my go-to now. I use a doorway, and I use that to stretch my splits, my oversplits, my lateral things, push against the doorway and you pull your leg up, that, and also to the front, you stretch to the front. It's kind of an everything thing. The only thing that it doesn't stretch well is your back, and I ended up using a stretch band for that, which I don't necessarily highly recommend. I haven't found something that stretches back well, though, in a proper position. And then I came to learn as well, and that's something also that's very important, is stretching in a good position. You don't want to be stretching like totally twisted and not in a position, because you can, but you also need to stretch in a position, because eventually that's the position that you want to have, if that makes sense. So yeah, like I was saying, I just began stretching a lot. It was very painful. Muscle recovery was horrific, so I couldn't stretch the same amount every single day. And then finally, when I had enough of my whole health situation and healed myself, or was beginning to heal myself, I just reduced a lot of my exercising, so actual usage of my muscles, and I relaxed them, so that was a huge thing. Plus so they were relaxed, the inflammation went down, and I stretched, and I went to see a chiropractor, which I had a lot of adjustments that were needing help with, and I did that for a while and didn't really see improvements. I would stretch for like 1 to 2 hours a day, like I said, more so on the 2-hour point, just because I wanted to be moving my body for a certain amount of time each day. And then one day I went to the chiropractor, I came back home, and after going to the chiropractor the next day, I was stretching, and it was like beyond what I could imagine in my flexibility. I was so like shocked that I had my mom take photos of me in these stretching positions, and I sent them to my chiropractor. I sent these photos to my chiropractor, and he was like, okay, wow, that's good. He wasn't like truly impressed, because of course he does this on a regular basis. He has great outcomes and things, but I was just like so shocked that I had my mom take photos of me, and I have those photos. And I sent them in a message to the chiropractor, and I'm like, look at me, I'm flexible now. So that made a huge difference, especially for my hips. To even out everything, and then it just allows for your body to be flexible if you're all aligned. So that was a huge thing, and I preached on about that. I don't preach on about it too much anymore. On my TikTok is a chiropractor. So that's been great. Of course, it always just ends up being, if you have a good chiropractor, that's another huge factor. So I had an amazing one, and I'm now in the process of looking for a new one, which kind of sucks. I miss my old one. Anyways, so you always have to be wary about that. So that's a disclaimer. I had an amazing chiropractor. It always depends on the person, of course. And then reducing all this inflammation from dealing with all these health issues I had was a huge bonus, because my muscle recovery just improved significantly. So I can stretch to the same excessiveness every single day now without extreme pain or just not being able to, because it's just way too tight and painful. So that's mainly what I've done. As for the back, naturally, I do think my back is a bit more flexible than your average person. However, recently, my floating rib has stuck out, and 2 days ago, I went to a chiropractor for an adjustment, and it was a new person, and I'm taking what he said with a grain of salt. He said, I have an anatomical anomaly, so I could pay people to come and see a rib sticking out. So recently, I haven't stretched my back quite as much as I used to be, just because there's nothing painful. It's just awkward, because you have a bone is literally kind of sticking out. Yeah, but I've been told by at least 5 chiropractors, I've been to quite a few now, they're all like, yeah, no, it's nothing serious. It's just the floating rib is out of place, and there's not much you can really do about it, because it's not really attached onto any form of structure, except strengthening your abs. So I've been doing that getting the six pack in. I don't know why I'm doing this because this isn't my abs. Anyways, so yeah, so that's that. So I don't recommend overly stretching excessively your back at once. I think the problem that initiated this whole rib situation was I was stretching one side excessively, so then it was pushing this rib forward, and then that happened, and I wasn't compensating with the other side. So very important, if you're not going to take away any of this video, the only thing I would want you to take away from this video, that didn't quite make any sense, but you got the point. If you take away something from this video, let it be this. Stretch both sides equally always, and try to get them to be stretching equally to both sides, because you want to make sure you have a proper balance. And the same goes with any form of training, physical exercise, your ballet training technique, pirouettes, jumps, whatever it may be. Even it out, because it makes a huge difference in the long term. Yeah. One last game changer was a foam roller, and I'll get into this at another point because I don't want this video to be 3 hours long. Use a foam roller. That's basically it. I'll probably talk about why and how at another point in time. If you want to buy a good foam roller and you have no idea what kind of stretch bands to use, don't overly use the stretch bands, as it can cut off your circulation if you're holding a position for way too long. A lot of people use stretch bands though, so it's not like you're gonna die from using a stretch band. Those are linked down in an Amazon list that I created, so if you want one of those, you can look in the list. If not, that is it for the video, because I don't want to ramble on for too long, even though I'm fairly caffeinated and probably could. Yeah, if you have any requests on videos or things that you'd like me to talk about, I'd like to talk about strengthening and technique, how to improve your turnout eventually at some point soon. So that is what I'm going to talk about. If you have any other requests from a late ballet starter, feel free to request them in the comments down below, or by messaging me. All my social media links and everything is down below. Yeah, thank you for watching, and yeah, stretch both sides equally. Yes.